And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast.
Flippity-jibbity nonsense.
I thought it was terrific.
Not just big, it's yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome, and thanks for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jeff Morey, and I am your host. This week, I have a very special show lined up for Veterans Day, and I'm excited to welcome someone who is even more passionate and proactive, actually way more passionate and proactive than me about not only honoring, but also supporting our honored veterans. Her name is Margo Lapointe, and she is the founder of award-winning organizations that support not only our veterans, but also children of veterans as well. A lot of people talk about honoring and supporting veterans. Margo does it. I think you'll be hard-pressed to find someone as passionate about working to better the lives of American service veterans than Margo Lapointe. So I could sit here and tell you all about the amazing work she has and continues to do, or I could let her tell you herself. So without further ado, I want to welcome Margo Lapointe to the show. Welcome, Margo, and thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So you, like me, did not serve, but have family members that did. At what point did you decide you wanted to dedicate so much of your time in your life toward helping veterans and their families?
You know, at this point, and I don't know the data on this, we could probably fact check this later, but so many American families know someone who has served or by extension, maybe related to them. When I was married, my father-in-law was a World War II Seabee. So I feel like it's become just the fabric of America that someone we know by extension in any capacity, whether they're close to us or not, has served. And I am just a civilian. I just grew up in a small podunk town in Massachusetts, really beautiful little quiet childhood. And I never would have imagined at that time that I'd be, serving in this space. I pursued my own track for putting myself through school and learning and seeking out a career for myself as a kid. And when I was still in college, I interned in Washington, D.C. for the National Head Start Association. So it was there that my world into the nonprofit sector began. And from there, it just continued growing. And today I'm a certified nonprofit executive with 25 years experience. But the skill set that I possess has become very attractive for those in the nonprofit space because not everyone knows best practices, right? They're just there for the love of the mission. Their heart's in the right place. But working in a nonprofit organization is completely different than a for-profit business. And there are best practices to understand and know. So I have just been in my own lane, doing my own thing. And I've been sort of fortunate that folks have reached out to me asking for my support, and I'm able to say yes to them. And that's sort of what pulled me in that direction.
That's great. I want to ask you man, you have your hands in so much stuff. I don't know how you handle everything. I want to ask you about all the work that you're doing, and I want to hear about all the organizations you're affiliated with. But before we do, would you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure. Well, my degrees are in business administration and in political science. And then I hold certifications in, as I said, nonprofit organization management. And that certification comes from Suffolk University's Sawyer Business School, as well as the Massachusetts Council of Human Service Providers, which is the largest network of leadership in the sector throughout New England. It's really amazing people in that group. I'm honored to be affiliated. And I also hold a certification in family engagement from Harvard Graduate School. So that's my educational background, but I remain a student of my craft, right? I'm coachable. I'm always seeking to learn and grow. So I'm always learning and seeking to sit down with folks who have had different experiences and learn from those experiences. So that's my educational background. I grew up in a small town and I just put myself through school, started at community college and kept going. Fortunate to have experienced opportunities like studying at Oxford University, as well as the Disney College program. That was a really amazing experience. So sort of saying yes to adventures as they show up in life.
That's awesome. All right. I want to hear, I have seen your post, and that's what first drew my attention to you. And this is my special Veterans Day show. And I was like, man, I can't think of a better guest to have for this than you. Can you break down and talk about some of these organizations that you're affiliated with and some of the work that they're doing?
Sure. Thank you. And I'm so honored. It's so kind of you to say that to me. Surely there are so many more deserving folks for this very special, show tonight. I mean, war heroes and such, but I'm just a civilian. So, but
a civilian doing great things. Don't sell yourself short for the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. I mean, what I've learned is that civilians are such force multipliers in holding space to support those that serve our nation. So there are many amazing folks out there who never served, but serve those that serve. So that's an honor in itself, right? So I'm the founder of a private school, an award-winning private school. It's a really different, innovative model designed to actually teach coping skills and resiliency with the same priority as academics. So it's a really unique model. And when I was doing that work, I learned about the Purple Star legislation, Purple Star School Program, which is something that comes out of the MCEC. And it's essentially different states can secure legislation so that schools in those states can qualify and be flagged and identified as a Purple Star school so that military families, when they're active duty, they move every 2 to 3 years. And that means the kids are uprooting, right? So at my school, it's a private school, $18,000 tuition. So I gave out full scholarships to military kids. And that's kind of what led me down to DC for this, to learn more about the Purple Star school legislation, as I wanted to do more to support kids growing up in homes of families that serve, whether it's our nation through military or first responder kids. So what I learned was there's this Purple Star School program. And basically when you earn that affiliation and that label, it's kind of like a flag, like I'm safe for you. If you're moving to the state, we have support in the school that's trained and we have services to support you because the kids, when someone serves in their family, the kids serve too. So it's this additional support.
Amen.
Yes. So, and it's all of Purple Star schools are all over the nation, but they weren't in Massachusetts yet. So I packed my things and went down to DC and represented Massachusetts to learn how we could bring this home, and came home and I worked with an incredible state rep, Massachusetts state rep, who is a Gold Star dad. He lost his son a Marine son in war, and supported him, and we supported each other to get that bill, that legislation secured for the state. So now Massachusetts does have that. So that's kind of where it started. But when I was in DC, I had a conversation with the director of the Defense Health Agency at the time, Lieutenant General Ron Place, who shared this big need. Now, this was also sort of coming out of the pandemic, right? 2020, 2021. And he was like, we're seeing this spike in demand for military kids to access mental health support, but there's a gap in getting those services to them because of the shortage in the industry. I mean, there were really long wait lists, especially for that time. So I said, hold on a second here. What if I take the same model, right? The same recipe that I have at my school, just different ingredients, and create a program that specifically serves the kids. There's so many VSO, veteran service organizations out there that are incredible, but they really are serving the adult, right? Or maybe even the family unit, like a reconnect, but nothing specifically to the kids. And that's my game. That's what I do at the school, right? So we designed it. I reached out to some veterans that I know, and I said, this is my vision. What do you think? And that support system grew. And my team, that all volunteer team, no one made a dime. We got it fully funded so that guests could come for free. And it sold out immediately. We had guests come from Tennessee, Texas, New York, and Connecticut. I couldn't believe it, to come up to New Hampshire to the summer camp property on a lake in the mountains and spend a weekend with us. Their travel wasn't free, but once they arrived, their food, their lodging, recreation, and our workshops were all free. So it was amazing. My team, I can't say enough about them. Everyone that I asked to follow me with just my blind vision at the time immediately said, yes, what do you want from me? What can I do? How can I help? Everyone volunteered. We had retired Green Berets, retired 75th Ranger. We let him in. I tease him all the time. So he's amazing. His workshop was one of the favorites for the kids and parents. We had General Don Baldock, his incredible Army spouse, military spouse, Army veteran wife, Sharon, one of his adult military kids, and just this great team who came on, and they were like, tell me what to do. And so I designed these workshops and they delivered them. And I didn't know the efficacy. I know what I'm able to accomplish working with kids if I have a school semester or school year, but I didn't know if I'd hit my
weekend's
goals.
That's a pretty short amount of time.
It was a tight turnaround, right? All bunking together in these summer camp bunks. It was really fun. So on the third day, now my funder was there too. He's a retired Vietnam era Green Beret, and his son was there and his granddaughter, because they're multi-generation veterans. And so he asked for outcomes before, everyone departed on that Sunday. And I mean, the impact, the outcomes gave me goosebumps. I could cry. I mean, it was like, there was a youth there, because it was 11 and above, which is the highest risk for suicide. Suicide is a leading cause of death for America's youth, and military kids are higher risk than civilian peers. So very critical mission for me personally. So anyway, one of the kids was like, I was considering that before this weekend. And I was like, what?
Really?
And I just sat there like absorbing and like wanting to cry because it was moving for me, right? And so then another one was like, well, I didn't realize there were other kids out there like me, because some of them were retired veterans, but still it's the same impact, right? And so that now I know there's a community of kids just like me, right? And so it was one after another. And then the parents, because we also run something that doesn't exist really, on a large scale, but we ran parent support workshops when we split up the groups for different workshops. And some of the parents were like, I didn't realize how serving impacted my parenting. And just this, and one guy was like, I didn't realize, I thought once I retired, I was no longer part of the community. And now I realize I still am. And it was a very, very moving experience for me, because it's just a pilot program, right? So it was like, would this even have efficacy? And it sure did. And my team, I mean, I love them. They are amazing. They're some of my favorite humans. No one was there for, a book deal or a paycheck. Everyone we all volunteered. And they said, we'll follow you to continue this mission, because it's so important, right, to support the kids with peer-based community. Things that we know for veteran adults, right? Peer-based community, time in nature, designed for the kids. So today, I'm really excited to share that I had some meetings with the VCNO of the United States Navy, and he's very interested in our pilot program and the potential to onboard it into Fleet and Family Services, and all of the kids that can support makes me humbled, makes me want to cry, because I know I'm just a vessel of the greater good of God. So it's just, it's my calling to support the kids. But he actually shared with me, and this is not confidential information, this is, if you looked into it, you would know that he lost his teen son to ending his own life. So he understands the weight and the impact and the need for this. So I'm not sure what will happen, but I sure was humbled to have those meetings. I'll tell you that.
Wow. So this workshop, is this ongoing, and how often, what's the frequency that you do this?
So this was the pilot program, and once we had this proof of efficacy of the pilot program, I was kind of in this position where I'm like, there are so many different ways that I could implement this, right? Because there are major VSO foundations that are interested. Can we bring this to the kids? I posted about it on my platforms, and I had interest from people on bases around the world, Germany, wow, Okinawa, even, just other side of this country for me, like California and Colorado, saying, can you bring this to the base? Our kids need this. And I've been in this position where I'm like, what is best practices to execute this effectively? Do I say yes to a foundation who would be interested in onboarding it and executing it through them? Do I say yes to the VCNO and onboarding it through him into the Navy? Or do I actually take time and establish this as an independent business and then contract out with all of the different needs? And what I like about that is that it doesn't serve only one demographic, only one branch, right? Because, there might be a SF foundation that's like, we want this, or there might be a Navy or a Marine, or, and I like our National Guard, whatever it might be. And, I like the idea of just, I've really been praying on it and wondering, like, what is God's direction, and knowing intuitively that it's divinely guided and God will show up where it needs to be. And I'm leaning towards that direction of establishing it as its own, platform. And then anyone who would like to engage is welcome to do that from there. So that's where we are right now with it.
I know that's not the only one. You're busy doing some work overseas, I see. Can you talk about that a little bit and tell us all about that? Because that's some pretty incredible stuff too. I'm
so humbled, just very humbled and honored. I never choose where I end up. I seem to get recruited and called to help, right? So the fact that this team recruited me is incredibly humbling. It is an organization. It is, to my knowledge right now, based on yesterday's announcement by the DPAA that they are canceling their JFAs out to the Vietnam War Theater for MIA POW recovery, that they had scheduled for October into 2025. To my knowledge, this is the only team running MIA POW recovery expeditions to the Vietnam War Theater. And I'm honored and humbled to join this team. What's interesting about this team is the founder is like such a baddie. I know my kids will cringe. They'll be like, Mom, you're so cringe. They're teenagers. But I learned that word from them, so I blame them. But she is phenomenal. Her name is Amanda Rutledge. You should look up her bio. And the organization she founded here is Tours of Duty. And Tours of Duty, what I love about it is the first thing she says about Tours of Duty is that she designed this as a veteran suicide prevention model, right? Because what she does is she offers opportunity for veterans to come get professionally trained from, through Tours of Duty. And then it's the peer-based community. Like all of a sudden now you're part of this amazing elite team of incredible humans. I've been honored to meet them. And now you have a renewed mission, right? Because, oftentimes when you serve and you leave and, transition into civilian life, you've kind of lost your mission. You're trying to find your bearings. So this is a really amazing new mission that is so, transferable across any branch that you served in. Anyone that served can understand immediately and align with the mission to return and leave no man behind, right? So it's like, it's an incredible honor and humbling opportunity, I think, to be part of something like this. So currently, the next expedition runs to the Vietnam War Theater. And this team, because the specialized, unique experience of serving our country, right? When you serve, you get this skill set, right? The civilians do not get, right? But it is when they transfer over into civilian life, it's still there. And it's so often unused or displaced in civilian life. But because they have it, Tours of Duty has had a 100% success rate on expeditions that they've run on MIA POW recovery for the task that they were out searching for, and working on. So to me, that's just a testament to the incredible team. I mean, they have their own historic researchers. My opinion of one of their researchers, and I know, is he's the best in the world at what he does. And it's toursofduty.org, if anyone's interested and they're listening and they're like, I'm a veteran, I would like to get involved. Or my job there is Chief of Development Marketing, CDMO, the officer for that. So, you know, it's not about soliciting funds. What I do, I work at a very high level, so I create opportunities where funders or large, you know, companies that are interested in sponsoring and putting their name on like an expedition or being part of something so historic and impactful, especially the only American team running these ops, has the opportunity to do that. And so they would work with me to develop and design a custom package to make that happen for them. And I think that's pretty amazing, right? So, I mean, if you are a national defense company and your product was used in Vietnam, right? And you're like, yes, this is what I want. We're a 501c3 donation organization, so donations have tax benefits. And, you know, they're looking for benevolent giving opportunities. Could there be any more noble cause to put your name on something that goes fine and brings our, you know, heroes home? I don't think so. So I'm very honored and humbled to have been recruited. It's an exciting opportunity. And Vietnam has a special place in my heart. Recently, I was just at a reunion for the SOG operators, you know, MACV SOG, the special operators during Vietnam. And it was just so humbling to just quietly sit and listen to their stories. And you know, I know some of the POWs that were in Vietnam, and when you hear those stories, they're incredible. And to accurately preserve the authentic, I call it like lore and legacy, so I'll get into that in a second, but the authentic accounts of what it was like for them to serve is so important to me that so many people are working on that. Because in today's era of disinformation and misinformation in the world with cyber and AI, I mean, it too easily could get lost for the future generations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my whole thing about lore and legacy is I was writing a memorial post about someone I love that served in Vietnam on the 16th anniversary of his death in August. And I was saying that I didn't know, he was a Green Beret, so I didn't know anything about his career. He was a quiet professional. He never spoke of it. And it wasn't until after he passed that the breadcrumbs started showing up for me to kind of follow and say, what is this? Which is a gift, because then I get to pass it down to my children and my brother and his children, right? Like, did you know he's in books? Did you know he did this, right? So when I wrote that post, I said, those that serve our nation live two lives. They live the lore of serving and that experience, and only their brothers and sisters that serve with them really know those stories, right? Like, truly. And then the legacy of what they leave behind in their civilian life, whether it's, you know, as a parent or the people they meet and the people they impact, or serving in a nonprofit organization, or just, you know, picking up in a different way to help and continue having personal mission and personal drive. So that's something that I've found to be very true too, is the lore and legacy. And once you serve our nation, oftentimes what I've seen and observed is that the brotherhood, first of all, never ends, regardless of age or time. And very often, these are the ones that continue to pick up. They never ask, what can my country do for me? They're always like, what can I do next to help my country? So it's an honor to meet with them.
I love hearing stories from veterans and hearing them talk about their lives and their experiences. And some of them will openly tell you and talk about everything, and then some of them won't. My granddad was a gunner on a bomber in World War II, and he was very private about it. He didn't like to talk about it. He kept it to himself. I mean, I'm sure he saw some horrible things and probably had to do some horrible things. And, you know, it like you said, a lot of breadcrumbs started coming out after he passed. My dad started doing a lot of research into his service history, into what he did. And the man was a freaking hero. He had like medals everywhere. He got a flying cross. He got a Purple Heart. I mean, he was just lined with medals, and, you know, he never talked about it. It was never something that he was brought up in conversation. And I don't know, I knew he served, and that's pretty much all that I knew. And, you know, my dad was in the Coast Guard, and I don't know. I hope one day through my platform that I can grow enough that I can help and provide. And, you know, one of my biggest regrets in life was not joining. I
Oh,
look
really?
back. Absolutely. I thought about it a lot of times, and if I could go back, I wouldn't change anything now. I've got a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful girls, and, I wouldn't go back because, any of that. But yeah, I mean, I thought about it a lot, and that's one of the things I wish I would have done in life, because
What
there's
branch?
no better calling there's no higher calling than to serve your country and our God.
What branch would you serve?
Probably Navy, because I'm a water guy.
Okay. All
I
right.
love the water. Either Navy or Coast Guard, one or the two. Because
Okay. Yep.
I love to fish, and I love just the water. And I live in Tennessee, of all places.
What?
Blame my wife for that. But yeah, no, I grew up on the coast, and we had 2 boats. And my dad was a civilian for the Navy after he retired from the Coast Guard. He worked in the Navy for many, many, many years, and so I grew up in and out of a Navy base, and
Oh,
I have
wow.
good memories of him taking me to Norfolk Naval Station to go see the aircraft carriers. And
Wow.
and then I used to be a key accounts manager with one of the largest Budweiser distributors in the country, and we serviced Fort Bragg in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
There you go. Oh, busy job, I'm sure. Bringing beer to Bragg.
Yes, but we were. I got to do a lot of very cool things with them. Anheuser-Busch, of course, has had all their drama with the CEO and the woke crap. We won't talk about that, but that was before all this, and they were a big part of Folds of Honor, and they've always supported the military. And I got to meet some really cool people through my work with that. We were on Bragg a lot and got to do a lot of events, and it was really cool. It was cool to be a part of everything, and to feel like at least a small part of you was in that brotherhood. So
right.
I've always just held such a deep respect for the military, and that's why I wanted to do a special show and talk about some of the work people like you do to help support the military. So are there any stories that you would like to share? I know you mentioned the kid talking about suicide that touched you personally, where you touched the lives of veterans and the love and support they showed you in return.
Yes, actually, I would like, thank you for asking me that. I would like to speak about what just happened to me most recently, losing my ears, at the reunion for the Special Operators Association. First of all, it's a very special gathering. Really, you can only attend if you're a member or a guest of a member, and I was invited to attend, which, first of all, what a humbling honor. I mean, like I always say, I'm just a civilian, right? But I wanted to go because someone I loved was a Green Beret in Vietnam, and he's gone now. And so there were some people there that had served with him. So for me, direct source knowledge is the only way I'll ever preserve these stories for my kids and my brother and his kids. How else would you know, right? Only the people there that experienced can speak of it. So I was humbled and honored to attend, but there's a whole nother piece to it because of what I do. Speaking directly to people who lost their brothers leaving, that went missing in action, or POWs that never returned. There's a clock that's ticking historically on this, right? Because they're aging, and this information, we don't want it. I personally do not want it to go with them to their grave like it went to the man I love, right? He took it to his grave, because it will help us pick up the torch and continue the mission. So, and keep looking for them and bring those heroes home. So that's some context of what I'm about to share. So the guy that I loved in my life growing up as a kid, I met him around 8 years old, and he was in my life forever. He was a Green Beret, and he was on I didn't learn this until after his passing, but he was on a very elite mission, a historic mission called the Sante Raid, which was a joint mission that went down, they took helicopters into behind enemy lines into the Sante prison on an attempted POW rescue. So over time, I've been blessed. I can really only say I had nothing to do with this. I just follow where I'm guided, right? I have gained some friendships and relationships with the people that were on that mission, as well as POWs that he had attempted to rescue that day, which was in November 1970, by the way. This is the month. And so when I was able to attend this gathering. These amazing, I mean, these men were conditioned to be our country's lethal weapons, right? And now you'd never know it. Walking into the room, you're just thinking that you're hanging around out with a bunch of, great people. But then you hear the stories and they all come out about how phenomenal they were in their careers, right? So there was, at one point, I was sitting at a table and this older man came and sat next to me, and I saw his hat. It said he was a Vietnam aviator. And so we got to chatting about his career. He was like a tough old bird. He was one of those kinds of like tough veterans that like, he doesn't smile, you know what I mean? But he was very chatty. You could tell his energy was happy to be reunited with people. And the conversation somehow turned to POWs. I don't know how. And he said, that was my job. I was a fighter pilot. My bird was always full of POWs every time. That was what I was doing there. And he was like, I wish that I could reunite with them. I've been searching and searching for years and years, trying to find out if a couple of these guys who I really loved are still alive or not. And, I can't connect. I don't know how to connect. And I was like, oh, well, let me take this napkin and write down an email of someone who might be able to help you. And he said, oh, okay. And he was like, but he looked up at me and his eyes were brimming with tears. And I almost started crying on the spot. And I'm such a wimp inside. I'm not tough at all. And I'm such a mom heart. And
That's okay.
He looked at me with his eyes brimming and he said, will they have a list of who's still alive? My heart exploded. I took that napkin again and I said, well, this person will. And I wrote down an email for someone that I know who would have direct source intel on that. And so he said, and there was someone there that witnessed this whole thing. And this man said, I've been searching for decades for this. And I said, well, I guess God sat you in the right seat next to the right person today, sir. So for me, I mean, it was so validating that God had brought me to that, convention. I mean, that gathering. It wasn't something I had sought out, right? But it was meeting after meeting like that, one after another, where I just quietly listening to them and their stories. And I was able to offer a resource for them of some kind, because I do come from the nonprofit sector. So I do know some great folks, but to me, it was just felt very divinely guided. Even the coffee shop, it was in Vegas and it was in this big resort that has a casino in the lobby. So I would sneak down to the coffee shop every day to start my day. And I was in the coffee shop sitting, it's like a little lounge in the lobby. And this older man was sitting there and we started chatting. And he told me, turns out he was one of the, most lethal, secret operators in Vietnam. And he told me, like, when I served, we were just, me and my friends, we were animals. Like, we were just animals. And then at my retirement party, I had something happen. I had an accident happen. And through that car accident that happened to me, I immediately gave my life to Jesus. And it made me a better man, a better husband, a better dad. And it was like, I can't even begin to tell you that every meeting like this, every encounter I had there felt very divinely guided. People ask like, oh, are you working? Like, what are you here? Like, are you presenting? Or, I was like, no, I'm just here to meet folks and listen to their stories. See if, quietly help them, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy how they were killing machines at one point in time and turn around and you'd never know it, seeing these people in person and talking to them. And it's, it takes a strong person to come back and to be able to turn that down and live a normal life after what they've been through. I think
for me, I love spending time with, older folks and listening to their stories anyway. That's just how I am. But I don't think there could be a better source of knowledge than to sit down and listen to their stories of life. There's so much we can learn. I'll share with you that I had a conversation with one of the POWs, which is interesting, that the man I loved, had tried to rescue. And he told me, Margo, if they weren't able to be rescued on that mission because once they landed and broke into the prison, it turns out the POWs had been moved just not long before that, shortly before that. But I said to this amazing human, one of my favorite people in the world, I said, I can't imagine what it must have been like for the people on that mission to have to get back on the helicopters and leave feeling like they failed and they didn't know your fate. And he said, let me tell you something. He was like, because of that mission and that operation, if they had found us and taken us out that night, our PTS, post-traumatic stress, would have been off the charts coming home. I mean, everyone, it's famously documented what was happening to the POWs in Vietnam, and the mistreatment and abuse and torture. So he said, because of that mission, we were immediately moved to a new spot, and they were moved to Hanoi Hilton, and they were moved into these 1,800 to 2,000 square foot bays. So they were together. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And he said, no longer, he said, because we stayed, we heal. Our PTS is so much better than even GWAT veterans today. And we're outliving our friends and our spouses. And I was like, you have to tell me, like, what are you talking about? How did that happen? Like, and he was like, well, once they moved us into Hanoi Hilton, we had a peer-based community, right? They weren't isolated anymore. Their treatment was improved greatly. But also really interesting to me is it's almost like the same model for my school as well as my military kids program. They designed a schedule to keep them like mentally going, right? So they had Toastmasters, which I think is hilarious. And then they had there was one weekday every week, someone would talk about a vacation they had been on or something about their life at home. And every Sunday they designed church for themselves, and someone would stand up and deliver a sermon that they needed to hear, on a message they needed to hear. And then they had time, like they were outside, they did different things. All the elements that I know from my research, they're scientifically proven to promote wellness, they implemented. And so today, their mental health is, as he said, I mean, according to him, right? I mean, I think he is the topic expert here, healthier than GWAT. So I hear those stories and I think, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's talk to the people who are topic experts and see where we can learn, right? And continue that.
We've touched briefly a couple of times about faith. One of the things first caught my eye about you was that you're not scared to broadcast your faith. I think too often these days people are afraid to alienate others based on religion or political views or affiliation. How has your faith influenced your approach to business, education, and coaching others?
Thank you for asking me that, because I was sort of just quiet and kept to myself for a long time about many things that I believe. And then as I started to meet more and more people who are unapologetic in their beliefs and their faith, they gave me the confidence to do the same. And what I found is actually the more I share about, the more vocal I become about my faith as a Christian, and my personal relationship with Jesus, which saved my life many times over, the more I attract like-minded people, right? Which is great because they say that your vibe attracts your tribe. But with Christianity, it's not the 99 sheep, right? It's the one that's lost that you'd like to reach and welcome back into the fold. And so what better way to do that than to sort of share that I am in no way perfect. I'm certainly a flawed human. That's the human experience. But it's almost because of that you're most loved and you're most welcomed back, and to start learning about it. Unfortunately, I mean, I really believe we're living in an era of spiritual warfare, given the
absolutely,
which I call the suicide pandemic, and that battle is very real. I believe there's a predatory attack on children. If you look at those rates and everything that's happening with kids right now, and I believe that there are many of us that are called to stand up and be strong in our faith and our love of others, and say, absolutely not. I'm here, one of God's warriors, here to do His will, not your will. I don't really care what your opinion is about it, right? At the end of the day, when I stand before Jesus in the pearly gates, and He looks at me and He says, Margo, I gave you these education and learning experiences, this position, these people that you knew, like wherever you are in life, this what I'm about to say can apply to you. Whatever experiences and roadmap. I mean, I remember being a kid, my parents were divorced, I was young, and I was the only kid I knew from a divorced family. And I used to go back in my backyard and talk to God and say, why do I have to go through this? None of my friends are going through this. And I remember feeling like, you're going to help other kids someday. As a kid, I vividly remember that and where I was in my backyard when it happened. And so the ability to understand that whatever mess you go through, you have the power, you're empowered to turn that around and make your mess your message, and stand up and help others and fight back. And I feel very much so that we're called to do that. So the louder and more vocal and the more you share about it, the less scary and strange and odd it seems to other people who might only know a bad story or a bad headline or a bad experience. Because it's not only, it doesn't mean, when I speak of faith, I don't mean you have to go to church, you have to follow this recipe, you have to do this ingredient. No, I mean your personal relationship with Jesus and how that might look.
I think a lot of the problems in our country would be solved if we would all go back to God, first and foremost. We need to bring God back into our school system, first and foremost, before anything, because the indoctrination of our youth is appalling. I think we need to bring it back into our military, which I think we're slowly starting to do that. But yeah, I think a lot of the problems, period, in our country and in this world will be solved if we look to God first, above all.
Well, it's really interesting. My background, my degree is in political science. And one thing we learned about is tribal politics, right? Like tribal dynamics. And one quick example is I live in Boston. You can see that hat behind me. So we are ingrained, right? Boston Red Sox, right? Our friends, our neighbors, our family, our grandparents, whatever. You grow up knowing what team you cheer for, right? And who your nemesis is, right? Like, those damn Yankees, right? Like, no, right? Like people fight over it outside Fenway and like they get really, like that tribal dynamic becomes so strong that sometimes, they want to fight with each other or like, raise heck with each other, talk smack to each other all the time and everything. And that's like the energy, right? No, I believe in my tribe. And like, this is the tribal dynamic, right? We are Red Sox through and through. God forbid you grow up in Boston and you like the Yankees. Forget it. You're in trouble. You know what I mean? So that same model is politics in our country, right? You grow up in this family that believes one thing, aligns with one label. Their family did, maybe your neighbors did. So it becomes, and then you turn it around and you think that the other person needs to be your enemy and how that translates, right? But for me, I mean, if I could say one message to people, anyone that might hear this tonight is, lay down your tribal dynamics, right? Like lay those labels down, especially in this time where SNAP has been frozen due to the government and everything that's going on there. The major demographic of people on SNAP are children, elderly, and the chronically ill. I don't really think that weaponizing food for children and the elderly and chronically ill makes a lot of sense. So lay down the labels and ideas and social media propaganda of why you should, poke fun at people who have food insecurity, and think at the end of the day, like, let's just feed our neighbors, right? Like oftentimes also we think in our minds that the government's always going to do the right thing, right? But at the end of the day, who comprises the government, right? It's people. So let's stand up where others fail and like, let's just show up and not rely or wait for someone else. So I'm seeing beautiful things happen in my community, food pantries and people inviting folks to dinner and showing up with groceries for folks. But that's just an example of like, lay down the differences and find the commonalities.
Well, that's perfect lead to my next question. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this from your experience. I imagine you have pretty unprecedented access to some of the biggest decision and policy makers in Washington and around the country that deal with veterans. How would you describe the current system that our country has in place for helping our service members, both active duty and retired? And what can we do as a country and our government to do better?
Thank you for asking me that. I'm just going to share my approach of what I really believe here. Okay.
Right or wrong? I just want to see Margo's opinion on this.
Here it goes. So first of all, the way I have worked with celebrities and politicians and government leaders throughout my whole career. And what I've found is it's when you build a table and offer different people a seat at that table, that's when the progress can be made. And you put the problem in the middle of the table and you all start, what I call throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? You just see what sticks. Like, let's all talk shop here about what makes sense and the positions that you're coming through. That's the same strategy that I use with my military kids program. I can't speak for those that serve. I can't speak for the kids that grew up in those families having to move all the time, right? Or the spouses that were married, waiting and running the households while their spouse was deployed. So I bring them to the table. I give them the seat. I give those titles workshops to them. So I hold space, create space for them to have a voice in the game and have skin in the game. I feel the same is true with the question you asked me. I believe the most effective way to tackle the problems, right, and the issues is to create what I see as, I would describe it as creating a task force of those topic experts almost, right? So the veterans, the active duty, the military spouses, the military kids, who are old enough to articulate what their life is like and the problems that exist and what could happen to fix them. Let's build one big table and let's bring us all to have a seat. Let's listen to those problems and see what they can have skin in the game to design as solutions. So right now we know the suicide pandemic, I would argue it's a threat to national security, right? It steals the lives of our active duty war fighters, our veterans, our community responders, our, protectors, our law enforcement, and our next generation, our youth. So let's bring them to the table to talk about solutions, right? And that's starting to happen. So, Doug Collins at the VA, I know he's been vocal about wanting to take an antiquated model and make improvements. Well, what does that look like? Let's bring those force multipliers to the table and have them talk about it to create the solution. So the biggest problem, I guess I would say, for all of this is there aren't enough direct source topic knowledge voices at those tables and in those conversations. And so I would encourage that leadership to create those task force, bring in the people that live those lives and those experiences, ask them, where are the gaps? Where can we do better? How can I better serve you? And what do you think this new model should look like, right? How can we improve? I think that's important for any leader. I also want to say that I've worked with a variety of leadership in my life. It's been really interesting to me that the higher up in leadership, you're talking about, all right, let's talk about military leadership, right? Let's talk about command of a military branch, right? They are, in my experience, what I have in my interactions with them, they have been the most welcoming, the most approachable, the most eager to talk with me, the most interested in who I am as a person and what I do. They're the opposite of what someone might think if you have a crappy boss at work, right? You're working in your cubicle and they're mean to you and they talk down to you. And, it's the opposite of that. And if you stop and think about that as leadership, which leadership is like my Roman Empire, I'm always thirsty to be better and learn more. You're talking about men who have been able to successfully gain the trust and following of people that are willing to follow them into battle and put their lives on the line. So how do they become that, right? I'm sure people will watch this and give me some feedback and say that's not true for every case. I'm just saying in my experiences of my interactions. And they do, like, there's an amazing Marine general, General George Smith Jr. I've watched him speak on mental health. And I know people that know him from the Marines, and they have said I would follow him anywhere. And one of the things he mentioned when he spoke was something he would do is take leaders from every level, under him and bring a table and put them together and discuss mental health. Like, where can we do better? Where are our flaws? Where are our blind spots? Let's strengthen those. And I believe that's the mark of a good leader.
I love that answer. Too often these politicians and government is making decisions for everyone, then they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't even know what the issues that they're trying to solve are. So yeah, I think that's a phenomenal answer. I mean, the subject matter experts are the ones to go to because they can identify the problems and they can help compound solutions.
And when they like the problem that they create, who are going to be the very first ones to champion that to the community? They
Absolutely.
Will, right? Absolutely. To their own peer groups. And that's really important. Absolutely.
All right, Margo, what's next for you both personally and professionally? You've accomplished so much. What's your goals for the next 5 years, 10 years and beyond? Where do you want to be and what do you want to do?
Well, thank you for asking me that. I'm I'm the type of person who does like to plan my goals for life, as you can imagine. Well, first, it's kind of a multifocal plan. So if you watch my social media, my Instagram platform, I try to give these quick 10-minute workshops on how to apply what we do in the C-suite of a nonprofit and how it can help you in your personal life, right? So a personal mission, core values, kind of like SWOT analysis, right? Where you can improve or, help you achieve whatever goals you have in your life. So for me, I would like to continue that. I once took this, I'm losing my ears, sorry. I once took this amazing workshop from this phenomenal human named Jessica Damiano on social media, right? Because I feel like an old dog trying to learn new tricks. I mean, I have teenage kids, so they're better at these things than I am in social media, right? And she said, which I'll never forget, be authentic on your platforms and use them as a vehicle to communicate what you believe in, right? Like who you show up as, right? And so I took that to heart, and I really took a long time to think about it. And then I launched my platform on Instagram. So you'll see it's faith-based, and it's, trying to help people with my different buckets of life. So I'd like to continue trying to help people in that way, right? Share knowledge with people. I think that I don't like to be a gatekeeper. I like to see people succeed and feel empowered. So there's that bucket. I would like to continue feeling purposeful in my career. So that might end up, who knows, it might continue working in what I do specifically. It's my job because I do love what I do, but it might end up being on a board of directors. And then for me personally, I'm going to apply to continue my education and continue trying to secure those degrees so that my kids learn that it's never too late. Chase every dream, no matter how old you are. And I mean, I grew up, my siblings and I are first generation college graduates. So my dad attended a 2-year like business school type of a thing, but never continued. So for me, it's like this personal, I don't know, a goal that I have to share with my kids. But from there, I think I would like to take those higher degrees and teach at university.
Awesome. Great goals. What do you like to do in your spare time when you're not got your hands in a million different things?
I love to host my kids and their friends. They're older now. My son's much older. He's, off and running with his friends. He's 16 now, so he's kind of off. But my younger child's 13, and when her friends just last weekend, they moved in for the whole weekend. I love that. I love to cook for them and get out in nature and go on nature hikes or just get outside. And for me, I'm all about coffee, campfires, time in nature. I live in the Boston area, so the ocean is always close by to us. So that's the type of stuff I like. I enjoy photography. But time in nature is very healing for everyone, right? For everyone's mental health. There is a body, mind, spirit alignment to work on. Oh, and Sundays I like to, if you watch my platforms, I like to try to connect on my faith, my personal relationship with Jesus, whatever that might look like. Some days I make it to church, sometimes I don't, whatever that looks
life.
like.
Yeah, we're the same way. That's life.
And oftentimes, don't you feel like, is it just me? Or do you also feel like just getting out in nature and having those personal conversations with Jesus is also very effective?
Absolutely. We're trying to raise my 2 girls camping. That's, we want to raise them to be camping girls. So we love being outside and they love being outside. So they light up whenever they get to go outside and go camping. So
your girls would have loved my school. I partnered with the Boy Scouts of America for my school, and we used their summer camp property for my school campus, 325 wooded acres. They partnered with me, so they taught a survival skills class 1 day a week, every week as well. So, but they would have loved it. I mean, we were outside all the time. We did some pretty interesting projects, but I'm a big fan. I'm a big believer. I homeschooled my children in their earlier years.
We're going to do the same.
Yes, it's so important. I think it really laid the foundation for them, for their love of learning. But they grew up learning on farms, on, gardens and islands and oceans and mountains. And, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Not with their phone in their hand, like kids these days, unfortunately.
Yeah, no.
So we won't get into that. All right. Where can we find you on social media? And I guess more importantly, how can we support your work?
Oh, thank you so much. My social media, I'm on LinkedIn professionally. I have an Instagram, which is Margo _Lapointe _, which is probably the best spot to follow me. And I'm also on Facebook, but I'm more so on the Instagram, I think. And that's where you can find posts like this about me being on your show. And what was your other question? Where you can find me and how you can support?
Yeah, how can we support you? How can we support your work and give and donate and help?
Okay, well, anyone can help support the mission to leave no man behind, right? So www.toursofduty.org. Any donation, no matter how big or small, helps the cause. It's $50,000 cost to run the expedition to the Vietnam War Theater. The team is, in my opinion, the best in the world at what they do. They work collaboratively with, foreign nations and embassies and everything. So it's like one giant team getting the job done. They're incredible. Go check out our Facebook page. I mean, our full Facebook as well, but our website, and you'll learn more about it, about the founder and the team. And if you're interested, if you're hearing this and you personally would like to be a sponsor, or you think your company might want to be a sponsor of the expedition or equipment or things that we would be in need of, please contact me directly. I'm the person to speak with on that.
Great. Margo, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
That's my show for this week. I want to thank my guest, Margo Lapointe, for joining me and for all the amazing work she has been doing for our honored veterans. I also want to take a minute and thank all of the veterans that listen to my show and all over the country. Your sacrifices are what have allowed this country to remain free, and we will never take that for granted. Thank you for your service, and God bless America.
Thank you for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. Your source for real news and analysis on politics, prepping, paranormal, conspiracy theories, and the volatile state of the world we live in. Tune in next week and every week for a new episode. And stay safe, stay healthy, and stay vigilant.